All right. Hello, everyone. I'd like to announce the start of the December 8, 2021 Taxi Advisory Committee meeting. We will start with the roll call. Clerk, please go ahead and conduct the roll.
Before I begin, members of the public can make a public comment using the raise hand feature during the agenda item, or make a request for any items using the Q&A feature. Members of the public will have 3 minutes to speak during public comment and receive a 30-second warning before their time expires. I will now repeat this in Spanish. Antes de comenzar, los miembros del público pueden hacer un comentario público utilizando la función raise hand o levantar la mano durante el artículo de la agenda o peticionar cualquier artículo utilizando la función Q&A o preguntas y respuestas. Los miembros del público tendrán 3 minutos para hacer su comentario y les daré una advertencia de 30 segundos antes de que el tiempo expire. I will now call roll. Sean Elo Rivera.
Present.
Akbar Majid.
Present.
Alfred Banks. Antonio Hueso.
Here. Good morning.
Brian Hillman.
Here.
Daryl Mayakawa.
Good morning. I'm present.
David Teesom.
Okay.
George Abraham. Guillermo Marquecho. Hamid Amini.
Present.
Mark Nichols.
Mark Nichols, present.
Margot Tenguay.
Here, present. Good morning.
Michael Trimble. Mikhail Hussein.
Peter here from Mikkel.
Peter Sishi.
Yes. Here.
Nancy Gudino. Nasser Tehrani. Chair, we have a quorum, and that concludes roll call.
Thank you, Clerk. All right, our agenda item 2 will be the approval of minutes. If I will request a motion for approval of the October 27, 2021 minutes.
So moved.
Is that Akbar?
That's me, sir.
All right, thank you, Akbar.
Second by Margot.
And a second by Marco. So we have a motion from Mr. Majid, a second from Marco, and I will ask for all members voting in favor to say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Margo, not Marco. And I approve.
Oh, sorry about that, Margot. Sorry about that. Thank you. I am also a yes. Are there any nays? All right. Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously. We'll move to item number 3, non-agenda comment. Clerk, please take it away.
Chair, we do not have any public comments at the moment.
Okay. We will then move to item number 4, which is the fiscal year 2022 amended budget updated forecast. I believe Gordon Meyer is here to provide a presentation. Mr. Meyer, are you on?
Good morning. This
Great.
is Gordon Meyer. I'm the operating budget supervisor here at MTS. So this morning I'm going to provide an update on the fiscal year 22 amended budget for the for-hire vehicle administration. So before we get into the actual numbers, I wanted to provide a brief background. So during the fiscal year 21, the for-hire vehicle administration increased regulatory fees and implemented a variety of cost-saving measures to balance the budget as well as right-size our reserves. FY21 ended with favorable revenues over expenses, resulting in a higher than anticipated addition to our reserves. So staff have set an annual reserve target going forward of 50% of our forecasted operating expenses. And this is starting in FY22, and we plan on taking that strategy into future years. But for FY22, that resulted in a significant regulatory fee reduction, which we'll get into on a later slide. So this presentation includes a summary of the final FY21 results, a current forecast of the FY22 operating budget, which now reflects the reduced fees, and also a 5-year forecast with preliminary estimates of the future reserve levels, as well as the regulatory fees, given some high-level assumptions. So first slide, we'll look at the final results for FY21. This was our prior fiscal year that just ended on June 30th of 2021. So first section here, we have our operating revenues, and on the first line, we have our annual regulatory fees. So this is really the driver of our budget. And you can see in the variance column to the right, we ended the fiscal year favorable by 152,000 or 19.1%. So there we finished with 1,046 permits versus we had budgeted 850 for the fiscal year. So that was a big pickup there. Next line, we have processing and other fees. So that's our application revenue and all of our other ancillary fees. And there we did better than projected by about 53,000 or 41%. And that was primarily because we just had better experience in the second half of the year after we had already built the budget. So that was positive signs there. All in all, our operating revenues last fiscal year were favorable by about 205,000 or 22%. So next section here, we have expenses. So most of the categories were pretty close, minus outside services. We were favorable by about 23,000. And that was mostly in legal expenses and then some general outside services costs. So that was favorable there. And then the other line where we had a larger variance was general and administration, where we were favorable by about 42,000. And the biggest chunk of that was we had a large one-time credit from our enterprise lease vehicle vendor that hit this year. That's not going to happen in future fiscal years, so it's a one-time event. So that was positive news as well. So our total expenses in FY21 were favorable by about 68,000 or 10%. So if you look at the bottom line here under the actual FY21 column, we ended the year favorable by about 256,000. So this is roughly the amount that gets added to reserves at the end of the fiscal year, plus about 10,000 in interest that was generated in the account or in the reserve balance. So that kind of brings us to this next slide, which is a brief recent history of our reserves. So you can see at the end of fiscal year 2020, so 2 fiscal years ago, we had an ending balance of 145,000 in reserves. And that was really when we started having the discussions about raising fees and cutting costs, because that at the time was actually a very small percentage of our operating budget. And then we raised fees and implemented the cost saving measures. And then you can see in fiscal year 2021, we contributed 267,000 to reserves. So that was higher than we had anticipated because we did better in the permit volumes and better on expenses than forecasted. So that brings us to the ending FY21 audited contingency reserve balance of about 411,000. And so that's the balance that is that we have today. And so that 411,000 equates to about 71% of our current forecast of the FY22 operating budget. And staff felt that that was too high, especially coming off of a pretty drastic fee increase. So we put our heads together and wanted to come up with a reserve target that we thought was high enough to allow us operational flexibility, but low enough to where we're not tying up, we're not raising fees drastically and then just having it sit in reserves. So we thought 50% was an appropriate figure going forward, and that's what we're using for the projections coming up. So now getting into the reforecast of the FY22 operating budget. So just some background, the FY22 original budget that you can see in the second column, that budget is the approved budget and that is in effect right now. And what this presentation is a revised forecast that will eventually become the FY22 amended budget that will get approved here in February or March. So looking at the operating revenues first. So first line, you can see our annual regulatory fees. So here we're reducing our projection by about 288,000, and that is strictly due to the reduction in permit fees. So as I'm sure you're all aware, we're reducing the NEM and charter fee from annual regulatory permit fee from $875 to $440. And then we're reducing it for taxi and other categories from $700 to $350. So that's the main driver there. Next line, we have the processing and other fees. So we're increasing this projection by about 32,000 or 41%. And that's based on our experience so far in the first half of the fiscal year, as well as looking at last year's too. We feel like the number we had in there in the original budget was too low. So all in all, we're reducing the operating revenue forecast by about 256,000, which as mentioned it's entirely due to the reduction in fees this year. And that reduction in fees is being paid for by the one-time reserve surplus that we have this year, which we'll get into in a little more detail later. So moving on to our expense forecasts. So most of these categories are staying the same, but we did have some changes in personnel. So we're reducing the forecasted personnel expenses by about 45,000. And that is due to one regulatory analyst position becoming vacant through attrition. And we don't have any immediate plans to fill that vacancy. Energy, we're reducing by 8,000 from the original budget, and that's because the for-hire vehicle administration staff moved to a new location where they're no longer having to pay direct utilities. And then general administration, we're reducing by 25,000 from the original budget, and that is also related to the staff relocation because they have a lower facility rent cost than they did before. So all in all, from the original budget draft, we are reducing the expense forecast by about 79,000 or 11.9%. So looking at the operating revenues and operating costs combined, you can see we're projecting a net operating deficit under the FY22 amended column of about $117,000. So the for-hire vehicle administration is a self-funded entity, meaning it must fund its own expenses, either with its own revenues or the contingency reserve. And so that $117,000 projected deficit is being paid for by the contingency reserve balance. And so that $117,000 deficit was calculated by reducing the regulatory fees to achieve our 50% reserve target. So by reducing the fees, we are planning on hitting our 50% reserve target almost exactly for this fiscal year, assuming all of our assumptions come true. So that's that. So lastly, I wanted to provide kind of a high level forecast of what the next few years would look like in terms of regulatory fees, to just give everyone a sense of what's coming down the pipeline. So in this table here, the operating revenues were calculated to achieve our ending reserve balance of 50%. So basically we calculated the fees from the bottom two rows to achieve our target. The expenses were forecasted with 3% inflation in FY23 through FY25. And so you can see, looking at the fees below, you can see FY21, that was what the fees actually were, pretty high at 875 and 700. FY22, we're reducing them to 440 to 350. It's a large reduction, primarily because our one-time excess and reserves. And then you can see, based on these expense assumptions and assuming we still end up around 916 permits each year, you can see that next year it goes up to about $600 for NEMs and charters, and about $480 for other. And then it should grow roughly by inflation going forward in a perfect world where all of our assumptions hold true. So if the permit volumes come in better than 916, then we could see that number go down. If it comes in lower, we could see a steeper increase. But that is kind of a high level glance into what this will look like going forward. And with that, I'd be happy to take any questions on the budget presentation.
Thank you for that, Gordon. I see a hand up from Tony.
Thank you, Chair. I just had a question on the, we call it personnel expense, comparing that to general administrative, just to understand the general and administrative part of it. Was that removing the position that we had before and not filling it in? Is that what resulted in the decrease in that position?
I'm sorry, you said you're asking about the personnel expenses or the general and administration?
We had something called personnel expenses, that's the staff. But I'm referring to the other one that's general and administrative. Is that also positions? Is general administrative, is that a category for?
No. So the general and administrative includes mostly the facility rent costs. So we're reducing that by about 25,000. Yeah, 25,000 from the original budget, and that's because we're paying less rent for the building now that the staff moved to a new location.
Because the actual in 20 it says 124,000. And the actual for 21 turned out to be 29,000. So that's from the move that was made. That's where the savings is derived from. Is that correct? Is it lower costs for general administration in the move where we're at now, as opposed to where we were before?
I'm not following where the 120,000 is coming from. Are you looking at the presentation or one of the attachments?
What you call the FY21 actuals net operating income. You have an itemized section that says actual FY20. This says general and administration 124,924. That's in a prior page 4. So on page 4 in the operating revenue section, we compare the general and administration 124,924 to actual 29,239. That savings that we're getting is a result from moving from one building to the other. The savings that we're getting.
Yes.
All right, so in the general administration, there is no personnel. It's all related to facilities.
Right, all of the personnel costs are under personnel. So the G&A includes mostly the non-revenue vehicle lease and also facility lease costs.
Okay, so that's, and the other question I had, 916 permits is what you're basing it on. That's people that have permits shelved and people that are operating. That's the total amount.
Good morning, Tony. Good morning, Chair. This is Leonardo Fiwo, manager. That's a conservative estimate that we use to project for projections for budget purposes. So based on the last 2 years in the history of the permits that were not renewed, we made, in other factors also, We made an educated guess and an estimate to come up with that number. And including all the permits, not only taxi cab, but all the other modes also that remain in operation or valid in our database, and also under surrender. So that's how we come up with that number. It could fluctuate as Gordon mentioned, but that's the number that we used and that we use for this budget projection and also for the future ones.
All right, so that's not an actual, that's a forecast. Okay. All right. That's all I had questions on. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Wiseau. Clerk, I realized that I did not ask you if there is any public comment. I didn't see any hands up. I just want to make sure I'm not missing something.
We do not have any public comments.
Okay, thank you, Clerk.
Oh,
I believe.
sorry, Chair.
Yes.
Chair, it looks like we do. Abel Seifu.
Okay.
Abel, can you mute yourself now?
All right, thank you. My name is, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you for giving me a chance. I saw about the reduced regulatory fee. And as you know, we're greatly impacted by the business, especially with COVID. So it's my expectation that this committee will reduce the fee at least by 50% from what I see. And so everyone will be happy about the situation. Thank you. That's all I'm going to say.
That concludes public comment, Chair.
Thank you, Clerk. I believe Mr. Let's see. I believe David is next up with his hand.
Yes, I have a question for the gentleman who's doing the budget analyst. Is that requirement for the half of the reserves for the budget? Is that meant?
David, it looks like we lost audio for a little bit. Can you unmute your mic?
Okay, I'm sorry. The gentleman who's doing the budget analyst, is that reserve has to be done by the next year, or is that just a guideline that we have with the city?
No, so the 50% reserve target was actually something that we just came up with as staff. So last year we came up with a bunch of scenarios on, what fee increases we were going to do and what reserve levels that would achieve. But we hadn't really set a target. And so we think, in terms of one, being consistent, but also being transparent, that like selecting a percentage that we're targeting every year and then sticking to that, we thought that was a good move. So that's why we chose the 50%. And then that gives us an exact target every year that we can calculate the fees to achieve. But there's no official ordinance or anything like that that determined the 50%. It was more of a staff decision and just wanting to be consistent and then also transparent.
Okay, Mr. Chair, thank you very much.
Thank you for the question. Peter, Mr. Zici, you are up next.
Yeah, I wanted to follow up on the reserve question because I've served in public office before, and 50%, in my experience, is a pretty high rate. And I don't think it's wrong. It's just in my experience is very few organizations carry a contingency reserve of 50%. So I guess my question is, when staff looked to set what the number would be, did they look at any past experience to come up with that number? I imagine you just didn't pull it out of the air. It based on some budget experience with MTS. So did you look at past years to establish the 50%?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and it does seem really high, especially when you compare it to like our, MTS as an agency. We use 12.5%, but we also have a $355 million budget. So, the volatility is a lot less overall. So kind of the thinking that went into the 50% is one, like the main driver of this budget is the regulatory fees. And with, given the volatility with, the airport and the Uber and Lyft regulations over the years, like we've seen that number become highly volatile. So it wasn't, you can see from the presentation that we didn't end as bad as we thought we were going to, but we've had years, Lenny, correct me if I'm wrong, but where we've had 1,400 plus 1,450 permits. And then last year we were projecting 850. So that's a big drop.
Got it.
And so we want to, because this budget is relatively small, like we need enough in it to allow not only to weather a storm, if we see a big drop off in permits, but also to allow flexibility, like, if we do need another staff person.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how we came up with that number. We ran some calculations at different levels. We looked at 25%, 50%, 75%, and it was that dollar amount that we thought looked the most appropriate.
Okay, I'm good with that. I just wanted to hear that it came out of that and not just I just wanted to hear where it came from, and that's fine with me. Thank you. I also want to thank the staff and Lenny especially for making the move out of the building and into the larger building and reducing the utility costs. I think that was for us in the industry who are suffering. I think it gives us more confidence that you guys are really trying to save money also, rather than increase the fees, that you're doing your part to save money by making that move. Obviously, the cost savings are significant there. So I just want to applaud you for making that move and saving yourselves and ultimately us some money. That's it. I'm done.
Thank you, Mr. Zici. I see Alfred's hand up.
Chair, and just so you know, we also have one public comment in the queue.
Oh, okay. We can take that, generally we just do that before committee members, but I suppose since I messed up, why don't we go ahead and take the public speaker, the public comment, and then we'll go back to committee members if there are any.
Okay. Henry Ho, please unmute yourself now. Henry, it looks like you're still muted.
I know that patients.
Hello?
We can hear you.
Yeah, my name is Henry Ago. I'm a cab owner too, Ago Cab. My question is, considering the inflation that you guys mentioned about 3% to 5% inflation, and we've all seen what happened last year with the COVID. I would like to support the idea that the regulatory fee, at least for now, should be reduced from that 700, even if not 350, but it should be reduced because the 700 right now is just too much for us to bear. That's my question or suggestion, whatever.
Thank you, Chair. That concludes public comment.
Thank you, Clerk. And the comments of the fee, not unrelated, obviously, completely to the item we're hearing, but as a reminder, item 5 is the 2022 fee schedule. So we'll get into that more in the next item. I believe we had one more committee member hand up before we move on to the next item. Are there any more committee members who'd like to speak to this item number 4? Alfred? Alfred, we'd seen your hand up there for a moment. Just want to make sure that there's no comments there. All right. Well, seeing no additional committee member comments or questions, I will thank Gordon for the presentation, Lenny for the additional context, and the committee members for their questions. I think the questions about or the reserves are obviously really important. And to Mr. Zicci's point, the context for why the rate is what it is an important one, because for folks who are struggling, reserves are often thought of as being there for, what we consider a rainy day. But for folks who are struggling, the question often is, if it's not raining now, then, what looks like rain to you? So I appreciate the additional context there. Definitely appreciate the questions. We'll now move to item number 5, 2022 fee schedule. Lenny, I believe you have a presentation.
Good morning, Chair. I do. This is item number 5, and it covers the fee schedule that Mr. Meyer introduced us to in his budget presentation. This fee schedule has been approved by our CEO, and the good news is that we are seeing a significant reduction in the regulatory fee, approximately 50% across the board for taxi cabs, jitneys, low-speed vehicles, and sightseeing permits. The regulatory fee for next year will be at $350, and for NEM and charters will be at $440. We made also some subtle changes to the fee schedule, and one of those was the addition of $100 permit renewal late fee. And that allows permit holders who are unable to meet or to pay the regulatory fee by the April 1st deadline. We're giving them an extra month for them to either decide if they want to keep their permits and pay that regulatory fee in addition to $100 that would allow permit holders to keep those permits. The deadline, and in that case, the late fee payment deadline will be April 29th, 2022. It should be noted, and this is very important, there will not be any more fee extensions or payment deadline extensions. If a permit holder fails to pay the reg fee and the $100 permit renewal fee by the April 29 deadline, then the permit will be permanently revoked. Another change that we did for the fee schedule was the removal of a $10 certificate replacement fee. And this had to do with the certificate, a print certificate that we would provide the permit holders or drivers who undergo the driver training to present for the Sheriff's Department in order to renew the driver ID. So we usually provide that certificate via email in an electronic form. However, some drivers would prefer to receive it in a printed format. So we would charge $10. We do encourage every driver and every permit holder that would like to have a printed certificate to find the means either at home, Office Depot, Kinko's, or any other way where they can print that certificate if they so choose. That way they can have it in printed form. And we're happy to assist with further instructions on that. And also we added $100 fee for failure to produce a mechanical inspection by the due date. So one of the main focus of our regulatory program is to ensure that all the permitted vehicles are in a good state of repair to be operating safely and mechanical wise. We require, in order to renew the permit, we require that each vehicle undergo a mechanical inspection at a Bureau of Automotive Repair facility. In last year, we did encounter some companies that failed to produce that mechanical inspection by the due date. That causes delays in administrative processes in order for us to renew the permit. So in the event that the mechanical inspection is not turned in within 60 days of the permit renewal, then a $100 fee will apply, a late fee will apply for those companies that fail to produce that vehicle inspection fee. We will provide 60 days advance notice, 2 months for the companies to make sure that those vehicles undergo that mechanical inspection and that those forms are provided for Hire Vehicle Administration in order to renew the permit. That concludes the item number 5 presentation. I'm open for any questions.
Thank you for the presentation, Lenny. Clerk, are there any public comments for this item?
We have no public comments, Chair.
Okay, well, we'll take a moment just to give folks to raise their hand. It seemed like there was some interest from the public in the fee schedule. So let's wait another moment or two, and then we'll go to committee members as I see their hands starting to go up. Clerk, any hands yet from the public?
Not from the public, no.
Okay, great. Well, seeing none, we will then move to committee member questions and comments. Mr. Hueso, you had your hand up first.
Lenny, is something we're going to vote on with respect to your presentation, or this is a later date?
Good morning, Tony. No, this is just an informational item. There is no need to vote.
Lenny, can you explain from a procedural perspective for folks, since this is an information item for the advisory committee, how does this change actually occur? Is this at the staff level? Is this for the board to do? Can you fill folks in on the process part?
Certainly. To elaborate a little bit more of how Gordon explained it, we calculate regulatory fees every year, and the main driver for those calculations are the permits that we expect to keep. So in the last 5 years, I would say, notwithstanding the COVID pandemic, the permit volumes have remained very fluctuate and have been on the decline. So the way that we came up with this, first of all, it was an application. The way that we calculated the current rec fees that are on the screen right now, which are approximately a 50% reduction for the prior year, we calculated those by the forecast of permits that we anticipated that we're going to either that are going to be renewed, which were 916. The second factor was the decision of the MTS CEO to apply a one-time industry stimulus to this regulatory fee and since a reduction. Going forward for fiscal year 2023 and 24 and 25, as we saw at the previous slides, we're calculating the rec fees based on two factors: the 50% contingency reserve, the goal that we established as a norm, and also whatever number of permits for higher vehicle administration estimates that are going to be renewed for that fiscal year. And I believe Mr. Hueso asked earlier if we contemplate all in that estimate, if all the current permits are contemplated, including the ones that are under voluntary surrender. So the voluntary surrender number is also a varying factor. And just to put it in perspective right now, we have 608 taxi cab permits on file. And out of those 608 permits, 110 are under voluntary surrender. So that's a very that's indicative of how many taxi cab permits might be renewed in the following fiscal year. So that's mainly how we calculate the regulatory fees here. I hope that answers your question, Chair.
Yeah, thank you for the additional context, Lenny. Tony, I believe you had additional questions or comments.
Yeah.
Feel free.
The reduced amount of the $10 on the certificate, that's from the current $30 fee that's being charged for the safety class test. Is that correct?
No, Tony, that's a separate fee. We're still charging a $30 training class fee, and that covers staff time and the time that it takes to schedule those for that training. The fee was just to print a certificate, and the time that it would take for staff to research and go back to our rosters in the event that the driver lost or couldn't get a hold of the email that included the digital copy. So we decided that fee, it's no longer needed since we're providing everybody with an electronic copy of it, and there's additional resources that the driver might use. As I mentioned, Office Depot, maybe the dispatch service or a family member that might be able to help them to print that digital copy. But the $30 still remains in our fee schedule because that's a separate charge for driver training.
Okay, thank you, Lenny.
Thank you, Tony, for the question. I see David, I see your hand up next.
Yeah, I'm looking at the regulatory fee schedule. Why is it just only 1 percentage point at 50%? Is there a possibility that we can do this over like a 2-year period and give a 25% discount per year over the next 2 years to allow for future permits to come in, then enter this at the end of next year to see if we can reduce it more after that? I just have the $116,000 scares me on the reserves, tapping that much in reserves at one time for future budgets. I would be more happy with 80,000, like 50,000 or $60,000 for 1 year over a 2-year period, so we won't have the big colossal damage down the road if anything happens in the next 2 years.
Yes, David. As you recall at the prior presentation, the way that we arrived to the 50% goal of contingency reserves, we did many calculations, as you mentioned, maybe 25%, 50%, or even 75%. And the 50% norm would allow us, the projections show that would bring solvency for the next till 2024. If we were to examine or to adopt any other reserve level, then that certainly would affect the operational budget for the department. So staff arrived to the agreement and the conclusion that the 50% is the optimal contingency reserve that would guarantee operational operations throughout the years until 2024. While, and I should point this out, while keeping a reduction in the regulatory fees and keeping them stable. So the regulatory fees, the reserve contingency, David, are mostly concerned for the operation of the department and not so much to be applied for the regulatory fees. This time it was, as I mentioned, as a one-time industry stimulus. However, the regulatory fee revenue is the one that dictates what the regulatory fee for next year would be.
But still, here's the problem I'm seeing. I mean, we have a reserve $411,000. You're going to tap into it next year for 116. The problem is if anything happens, like I've seen the budgets in the past, we haven't had any major hits except for COVID that allowed us to use our reserves for operational costs and all that stuff. But now, since we're past the COVID situation, we're not as bad as it was before. I'm looking at multiple years. I want to keep companies going for the next couple of years and not just a 1 year reduction. Because what's going to happen, we'll go back up and people are going to be upset at that 1 year reduction. What I'm looking for is a multiple year reduction for 2 years, showing that we do care about the drivers, we do care about the industry, but keep our cost recovery costs down and renewing our budget at the end of the next fiscal year, where we're not going to lose our complete reserves down the road. I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm looking at the reserves next year. You're looking at $250,000 or more, and I'm looking over the 5-year cost factor according to the budget report. I think we should. I think a 25% reduction would be better off this year and next year also, and then maybe another 25% after the year after that, depending on cost recoveries and permit holders. And
yes, go ahead.
And so showing that we do care about the industry, and then we give them a long-term deductions instead of a 1 year kick in the pants reduction, and then down the road we go back up again. And we don't know what's going to happen in 2022 2023 or 2024. But if we project it at 25%, we're not going to lose that much money in the process. We're still going to give them a rate reduction for both MEMs and the taxis and the jitneys and all that stuff for the first year and the next year, and hopefully the year after that. And if we keep that cost recovery down to 25%, we could save more money over the 5-year plan than we could just 1 year and go on to the next year's budget.
Thank you, David. And that scenario that you just mentioned was thoroughly examined by our finance department. But it should be noted for the committee members that there are other factors that come into play. And the major factors are the permit attrition and the constant loss of permits that the industry has experienced in the last 5 years. And that's the major factor. If we end up permitting more vehicles, either from taxi cabs or NEMs or any of the other categories, there's a possibility that would dictate if the rec fee will go up and down for next year. So there is a possibility that we might have continuous regulatory fee reductions depending on the number of permits that we, number one, keep, or B, come on board for our budget. So that is the main factor that we looked into when making these calculations. The 50% reserve contingency norm that we adopted allows for operational to continue our operations throughout those years without any expectations or any unexpected events, I should say, like maybe a spike in the pandemic or continuous market share tour and lift. And 50% guarantees that operational continuancy for the next couple of years, and that's how we arrived to the 50%. Your point is very valid. However, we do want to clear up for transparency reasons and for everybody to understand how the agency arrived to that 50% reserve level, which we believe is the optimal level to continue operations.
Mr. Chairman, I'm still not happy with this 50% for 1 year type thing. I just have a feeling, because we've done this before a couple years back where we gave them a one-time fee and they were expecting it year after year for the same price. And I'm afraid that we're going to have the same problem in the next year after we reduce the fees next year, that the following year we'll go back up to 700 again, and we're going to lose more permits then than we would tomorrow or the next year if we reduce the fees. If we reduce the fees only 25% for 2 years or more, then we can say, okay, we reduce the fees from 700 to 500 and keep the 500 for a year for 3 years, to where we're not going to lose many permits, we're not going to lose many companies, but we'll keep a foundation for us to build and keep regulatory industry going.
Understood. I think it's an important question. As a reminder, this isn't an informational item, so we won't be voting on this. But I do think it's an important point. That I think what I'm hearing, David, is concern that the world that we live in, being as unpredictable as it is, while there could be significant relief felt from the big fee reduction this year, that certainty is very important for those folks in the industry, and the concern that another major event could require another bump in fees could be really, really problematic for the industry. That being said, it sounds like certainly sounds like staff did their homework on this. It sounds like they're being quite prudent in maintaining well above the minimum standards for reserves, despite this fee reduction, and it's going to provide some important relief. So Lenny, thank you for all the additional context you provided. David, thank you for the question. Seeing no other committee member hands up, we will move now to item number 6.
Chair,
Yes.
it looks like Alfred Banks has his hand raised.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Alfred, did you want to speak to this item before we move on?
Yes.
Okay.
So I just want to ask, based on this budget I heard, would you have enough budget to continue on the service for next year if the budget stay where it is? And also about the regulatory fees, and can they, if people cannot pay before April 1st and April 29, is there any, when we have a COVID last year, they have to pay 200 and, they pay the rest. Is there any way they can pay to hold their, their medallion rather than, paying it off if they are not operating? So when they decided to operate, they can pay the balance. And the other question is about the training. So the MTS is stopping the training from 2022, only the new people, correct? I just want to answer to those questions.
Thank you, Alfred. The first question, yes, the contingency reserves, as you might recall, Gordon Meyer's presentation guarantee all other things constant, of course, the permit volume to remain constant guarantees operational contingency for the next till 2024. So that is the, like I said, the optimal level that after all our research, we agreed on to continue operations and provide a stable regulatory fee for those years. Second question, there will be no extensions. We adopted this addition of late renewal fee because, as you remember, prior year, especially because of COVID, the agency took various steps to provide relief and allow permit holders that were experiencing financial difficulties due to COVID to keep their permits. However, MTS for Hire Vehicle Administration operates on, as you know, on a cost recovery basis. And we need to have, in order to come up with these budget projections, we need to establish the revenues mainly from the regulatory fee before the end of the fiscal year. So by adopting this late fee, we're moving away from the permit reinstatement fee that we used to have and that needed to be calculated depending on the permits that were not renewed. So this is permanent. This and the intention behind this late fee, Alfred, is to allow the industry and every permit holder to have the certainty of a final deadline, if you will, by allowing them to, giving them an extra month, which we believe it's more than enough and sufficient to determine if they're going to be able to pay that regulatory fee, especially in the context of the recent reduction. So it needs to be noted, no extensions because of these reasons. The agency will not provide any further extensions whatsoever after 2019, after April the 29th. And for your question about the training, we determined that in accordance to other industry practices, drivers like yourself who are experienced and who have been in the industry for many, many years, not to require to undergo the training that a new driver would need to when they come into the taxi cab industry. If there are any ordinance revisions or anything that needs to be noted for Hire Vehicle Administration, we'll reach out to the drivers, to the airport, and all the other stakeholders to advise of those changes. But the core of the training, if you've already taken it, then after this year, you will not be required to take it again. It will be permanent. Only new drivers that that come into the industry and apply for a Sheriff's Department ID will be required to take it. And drivers who do allow their Sheriff ID to expire, then by that reason, they would need to take it again. but those are the only two circumstances under which a driver would have to repeat the training.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Alfred, and thank you, as always, Lenny, for the response to the question. Clerk, not seeing any other hands. Are you? Oh, we got George. Okay, George, go ahead.
George, it looks like you're still muted.
The elimination of the licenses, I don't think so anybody have benefit when we've been in the business for long enough, and because of the money, the last 2-3 years, we were paying out of our pocket. And to eliminate, because I don't pay this year, the business is bad, I don't think it's fair for the people we have more than 2-3 cabs. I guess if you have some additional opportunity for that to stay till you get a driver. Because the last 3-4 years, you don't believe it, almost we pay out of our pocket. So if you get help on that, would be much better. Thank you.
Thank you, George. Clerk, any additional hands raised?
There are none, Chair.
Okay, great. Thank you. Then we will move to item number 6, proposed ordinance number 11, revisions. Lenny will have a presentation. This will be an action item. So Lenny, go ahead and proceed with the presentation, at which point, once you're done, we'll have members, an opportunity for members of the public to weigh in, and then committee members will be able to make a motion, and we will be able to take action. Go ahead, Lenny.
Thank you, Chair. Agenda item number 6 covers the proposed ordinance revisions to ordinance number 11. Every year and throughout the year, MTS receives feedback from the industry and compiles that feedback and then includes it into the ordinance revisions at the end of the year. This time, the ordinance revisions that we're covering have to do with vehicle markings. And it is the intent of MTS to explore additional options that would result in cost savings for the industry and for permit holders. And this revision has to do, as I mentioned, with vehicle markings, particularly to section 2.3C, which covers a light branding marking scheme that's already been approved by the Los Angeles Department of Transportation for hire vehicle, our counterparts up there with good results. And basically, it allows permit holders to place a vehicle in their service with lower cost. It provides a cleaner and more modern look, and also additional benefits that have been identified in the Los Angeles market is the access to new TNC driver pool. It is optional. Before I continue and I show examples of what this light branding scheme would look like, I do want to, for the committee members to understand that this is completely optional. We will not be mandating the vehicles to be rebranded or to adopt this new branding scheme. In the other sections that follow 2.3C, they're just conducive to the implementation of the main revision of the light branding scheme. All the other revisions that we did to the ordinance this year were minor and non-substantive revisions, mainly on removing gender-specific language. So this is an image of what the light branding markings would look like once adopted. And as you can see, all of the required markings would be placed on the glass section of the vehicle. This would allow anybody that would like, let's say there's an Uber driver that wants to bring his vehicle and turn it into a taxi cab. This would minimize all the requirements before they would have to follow another marking scheme, a paint scheme. They would have to repaint their vehicle even if it was new. They would have to get many markings. As I'll show, I'll provide examples of what the other two schemes are like. But as you can see, this one's very minimal. It still allows us to keep the main identifiers for a taxi cab, which are the medallion number. And I should note that the medallion number is the main component that we look and that all agencies or permitting agencies rely on to identify the company lost and found and other purposes. So we are still keeping that. As you can see, it will be required to be marked on the top of the windshield for a front view, on the sides of the vehicle, and also in the rear of the vehicle. As an option, we're allowing the company to either display, as you can see on the second picture on this slide, to display their the trade name, their company name, and a phone number also on the bottom of the glass. We will still continue to require the medallion to be affixed in the back of the vehicle. It is not shown here because this is for demonstrative purposes, but we will also affix a medallion in the back of the vehicle like we do with all the other taxi cabs. This light branding also makes it optional to have the traditional taxi cab top sign. Some permit holders like that look, but we're allowing them to have just a display like we see here in the front windshield to let the people know, or prospective passengers, that the taxi cab is available for hire. And this is similar to the branding requirements that the California Public Utilities Commission requires for TNCs. In practice, the department anticipates that many newcomers or many new vehicles or replacement vehicles will adopt this new scheme based on the costs and how simple it is to place a vehicle into service. It is optional, and those permit holders that would like either to keep the traditional branding as the one that we're showing right now in the slide may do so. As you can see, this is considerably more burdensome when it comes to bringing a vehicle into service, as far as a painting requirement, paint scheme requirement, the DBA, the larger medallion number on the front, and the rates of fare on the back door, and also additional markings at the rear of the window. So this is also optional. And like I said, our experience is that many legacy permit holders like this look. And unless they replace the vehicle, then they can always keep the same requirements so long as the vehicle passes our mechanical requirements. And the second option that we have is the minimum marking requirement that was adopted back in 2017. And this requirement, and I should mention that the majority of our taxi cabs have adopted at this point or displayed this traditional mark, this minimum marking, which requires the DBA or the company name, the medallion number, and an MTS decal identifier to be placed on the rear quarter panels of the vehicle. On the second slide, on the second picture, you can see our MTS medallion, and also on the top right corner of the windshield, a required taxi cab LED sign that would allow potential passenger to see and identify that vehicle as a taxi cab. All of these markings are optional. Once again, they will not be mandated, and a permit holder may choose to bring a vehicle into service either with the minimum markings, with the traditional marking scheme, or with the new proposed minimum markings. That being said, we recommend that up to the vote, staff forwards a recommendation to the board of directors to approve the proposed revisions. That concludes the presentation on agenda number 6.
Thank you, Lenny, for the presentation. We will now go to the clerk for public comment. Once again, this is a reminder for an action item, and once public comment concludes, we will be looking for a motion. Clerk, any public speakers?
We do not, but I would like to remind the public to raise your hand using the raise hand feature to let us know if they do want to make a public comment. At this time, there aren't any though, Chair.
Great, thank you, clerk. Well, then we will move to member comments and questions. Again, this is an action item, so we will be looking for a motion. I believe that Akbar had their hand up first. Akbar, go ahead.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you, Lani, for offering one more option as far as the markings are concerned. As I'm looking at this and I looked at the pictures, this is absolutely fantastic because the fact that you're not damaging the paint, and like you said, it would make it a lot easier for taxi industry to recruit from the TNC pools, whether it's a driver or owner operator, mainly owner operators. This will definitely make it a lot easier. And since it's an option, no harm is done here. Everybody will have the option of having the traditional look and this new brand new look where you're not damaging the original paint of the vehicle. So this is all good. With that said, I'll go ahead and make the motion to accept the revisions as stated in this presentation.
Thank you, Akbar. I just for the, sounds like we've got a second. To clarify the motion, Akbar, it sounds like you are good with forwarding staff recommendations which include the modifications that you've mentioned, correct?
That's correct. Mr. Chairman, I did not have any modifications. I'm stating that to accept the recommendation of staff as it's written.
Got it. Okay, perfect. Wanted to make sure that there was 100% clarity around that, just to keep things clean. Thank you, Akbar. Thank you for the comments and for the motion. So we have a motion on the floor. Tony, you had your hand up next. We'll go to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I had a question to Lenny. Lenny, it seems like between the two options, the traditional legacy version and the one we have plus this new one here, there seems to be a popular exodus of taking top lights out, and those that take that out, some are returning to wanting to put the top light back on. And I think with the availability of top lights that's declined, and the possibility that somebody might design something different that's magnetic, will that be allowed if somebody wants to put a magnetic top light in the new version, or would you have to use that only on the legacy version?
We would certainly entertain any other options. So it would be allowed. There's no ordinance requirement that the top light, that the top sign is permanently affixed. So that being said, there wouldn't, so long as it's functional, and so long if as the peanut lights or the amber lights function as the emergency signaling device, then we wouldn't have a problem, Tony, and then we would approve it, so long as it meets the ordinance requirements.
Okay, thank you. Then I'm with Akbar with regards to acceptance of this proposal. And Margot also, she can't raise her hand. I'm vocalizing that she has a question herself.
Thank you, Mr. Wazo. I just can I register that as a second for the motion?
Yes, sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wazo. And Margot, if you'd like to go ahead and make your comments or ask your questions, feel free.
Yes, what I'm noticing is because we don't have the top sign out there, there's a ton of flat rating, and they're using the flat rate to drive. And the problem with this is many of these flat rates are higher than the meter, which is illegal. And I'm a little more concerned about that. Other than that, I actually like the new markings, and I want to be able to see the markings on both sides of the cab, so that if the driver's in trouble, we can identify the vehicle. That's the one thing that we've lost with this interim scenario. And if it's on both sides of the windows and in the back, then we have a chance, if we know there's a driver in trouble, to be able to get them out. Thank you very much. I'll go for it.
Thank you, Margot. Duly noted. Thank you for your comment.
Thank you, Margot. David, you are next. And as a reminder, we've got a motion on the floor and a second. David, go right ahead now.
The only thing I'd like to add to this is the light inside. If we're going to do the modifications to the car with window stickers and all that, with ID numbers and all that jazz, that since it has been brought up since before Thanksgiving, that we were having some issues with our signs inside the vehicles being green instead of yellow or white, that also when they add this to the ordinance, that those signs have to be yellow, and so we can comply with local law enforcement, because this has been brought up, and I want to make sure that for the future that we don't have any issues with law enforcement regarding anything about the vehicles.
Thank you, David. We are aware of that, and we don't believe that that requires an ordinance revision per se. However, before a vehicle is placed in our service, our inspectors will make sure that those LED, in lieu of adopting a top sign, those permit holders that choose to display an LED sign, that those signs are either amber or white for the front, or red or white for the back. And that is what the vehicle code requires.
Wait a minute. I thought red was disapproved because it made it look like a cop vehicle. I thought it was amber or green originally was the only two colors at the time. But as I understood it from since then, that now I have to only be amber because green is not acceptable by the police department, especially by the Harbor Police Department in San Diego.
Yes, David, correct. And that's what prompted this revision, if you will. And the fact that I spoke directly to Harbor Police, and they're requesting this because many TNC drivers that have their TNC signs in red or blue in the front windshield, which is prohibited by the vehicle code. But so long as the same colors of a vehicle, which are amber and white, they can be, which are the headlights and the turn signals, then those same colors may be used for these LED signs on the front and on the back. You may use red because you have your brake lights, or you may use white because you have your reverse lights, or amber for that matter too. So that's an educational process, and our inspectors are actively meeting with these permit holders that have either green or blue, or that decided to get some of these novelty signs, and we're giving them a grace period of a month in order for them to comply. We requested Harbor PD to give us a little bit of room there for them to acquire new signs. And I want to thank you because you are one of the service agents that are actively helping the industry with providing them with these new signs. So thank you for bringing that up, and we'll continue to educate the public and all new permit holders that come on board, and make sure that those signs are the correct color.
So red's going to be approved now for the rear. Is that what you're saying, Lenny?
No.
That is my understanding from the Harbor Police sergeant that I spoke to. Any color that a vehicle already has in terms of lighting in the back or the front, then it's allowed. The problem, David, is with the blue, the green, and purple, and other colors that are not specified in the vehicle code.
Okay, because I recently got a driver who was yanked over by one of the police departments, and was told the red one in the back made it look like a cop car, and could not use it in the vehicle as a taxi sign.
Okay, thank you for bringing that up. But that is, I'll even put it in a memo, and to make sure those colors, that way maybe if that happens again, the driver can present that to the police officer in the event that happens. But we are taking measures. We are aware of these requirements, and we're, I don't know whether that happened, but I think it's a good idea to put a memo out there, especially for directly to Harbor Police, if that was the agency that encountered this driver in question.
Alfred.
Alfred, did you have, thank you, David,
Yeah.
for your questions and comments.
Yeah.
Alfred, did you have a question or comment?
Yes. It's very important that Harbor Police have nothing to do with the taxi ordinance 11 rules and regulation. If Harbor Police have their own agenda, then the city police, I think MTS should tell the Harbor Police that they have ordinance 11 that we follow. So we don't want the police telling MTS how to do rule on ordinance 11. I do not agree on any police comment about the light on the cab. I think the foreman director before, Lani, he already allowed the light, allowed this LED light, but we can't make changes, too expensive. Try to have a factory just to make a specific light. So we should have harbor police to stay out of that. I think Nani should say, we have ordinance 11, we comply with our rules. I think you're going to make it difficult for the police to be making rules over the ordinance 11. I think we should not allow the harbor police to make the rule for the taxi, because the city police want to make their own rules too. So I think Lani should let the police know that we have ordinance 11, they comply, period. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Alfred.
Alfred. So we've got a motion on the floor. We have a second. That motion was from Akbar, a second from Tony. We will now call for a vote. If I can request that all members who are in favor of the motion, and can we get staff recommend? There we go. Thank you. So the motion that's on the floor is viewable on the slide right now. So if we can get all members who are in support of the motion to please register their vote by saying aye now.
Aye.
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 I will also register an aye, and all members who are opposed, please say nay. All right, hearing none, it sounds like that vote that passes unanimously. Thank you, Lenny, for the presentation. Thank you, everyone, for the questions and comments. We will now move to item number 6. This is an informational item, so no motion will be required. This item 7 is for hire vehicle administration operations update. Lenny, take it away.
Thank you, Chair. Agenda item number 7, operational updates. In the first update has to do with an addition of another insurance company that is open for business in the San Diego market. As part of an informational effort for the industry, we will provide every quarter, either in a TAC meeting or in a separate email blast, the current list of insurance providers that are offering insurance here in the San Diego market. And as you can see, there are 18 companies right now. The newest one, Sarai Insurance, has began operations here in terms of offering insurance. And this is due to the revision of last year's of our minimum insurance requirements that allow these other insurance companies to come in and provide more competitive rates for taxi cab insurance and all other modes. So we will provide a quarterly report on that, and at any time, any permit holder may contact our office with any questions. Permit holders are encouraged to either contact these companies directly or a local broker of their choice for additional help, and provide that broker with this list. That way they can find competitive rates. The second informational item on the operations is a reduction of the County of San Diego insurance requirements for NEMs. And if the committee might recall, we did announce this a couple of meetings ago that MTS was collaborating with the County of San Diego Emergency Services Department to provide them information that ultimately led to the county's decision to reduce the insurance requirement for $2 million to $1 million per occurrence. This is good news for the non-emergency medical industry. And we believe that this reduction could incentivize NEMs that have yet to obtain an MTS permit or County of San Diego operating permit to finally do so. And it will also provide cost relief to already permitted companies by potential reductions in insurance premiums. And this is important because assuming that more NEM companies do come under compliance with MTS, then that would be a bearing factor in our cost recovery budget that might result in further reductions of the regulatory fee. Also, MTS staff received concerns from the airport, and also our inspectors noticed that many of the taxi meters that remain in operation lacked a current County of San Diego meter seal. So due to the COVID pandemic, the County of San Diego and many other agencies, their operations were severely disrupted, and permit holders were unable to obtain proper and timely schedules with the County of San Diego in order to have the county affix the required meter seal. So that's required by state law. But in this time, in communications with the County of San Diego Weights and Measurements, we are giving the industry a grace period to allow them to contact the county and set the necessary appointments to have county staff go through the necessary measures and procedures to affix that seal to the taximeter. In the meantime, those permit holders that have an expired seal may contact any of these authorized service agents that are displayed here in this slide. And we have 4 in San Diego. These are authorized service agents by the Department of Food and Agriculture. And they offer their services to provide a 90-day temporary permit. Based on our conversations with the local county sealer, it would be about June or July where the county will normalize their operations and start scheduling every taxi cab that requires their taximeter to be inspected. So we wanted to put that out there. That way permit holders have peace of mind that no action will be taken against them unless the taximeter shows any signs of tampering. And our inspectors are well trained to identify those signs of tampering. But as long as there's no signs of tampering, we will provide that grace period until the county resumes their normal operations. And also, as I think somebody mentioned earlier, we are looking into conducting an airport or originated trip minimum flat rate feasibility study. This has to go with what Margot mentioned a minute ago. And we received an increase of complaints of the trips that are coming out of the airport. The permit holders requested staff to analyze the implementation of a minimum flat rate for trips that originate out of the airport. Many airports throughout the United States allow taxi cabs to charge a flat rate for trips within a certain mile range or predetermined city zone. For Hire Vehicle Administration, we'll examine the feasibility of establishing an airport flat rate from a consumer protection and industry practices perspective. As we conduct that study, we will probably convene an ad hoc committee or present those results of the study at future TAC meetings to make an ultimate decision. But I should note for all the permit holders that are listening or that are interested in this study, we need to conduct our due diligence to find out what other airports are doing, what the city requires, in all the enabling ordinances that would need to be revised in order to implement this potential flat rate. Also, and finally, we want to communicate that going forward, we will, so long as a vehicle is properly registered with the DMV, we would accept that registration. And just to put this change in perspective, in practice, in previous to today, we would only accept commercially registered vehicles all across the board for taxi cabs, NEMs, charters. Going forward, we will only require vehicles to maintain valid and current registration, commercial or non-commercial. And this also goes in line with all our efforts to reduce costs. There are some significant, some minor cost reductions in terms of registration fees between commercial and non-commercial. But so long as every vehicle maintains that valid registration, then MTS for hire vehicle will accept it. And we should note that the California Vehicle Code or the Department of Motor Vehicles may require certain types of these vehicles to maintain commercial registration. And we recommend that the permit holder does their due diligence and comply with whatever those requirements of the vehicle code or the DMV. But as far as for hire vehicle administration, we will accept any type of registration so long as it's valid and current and valid. And finally, the 2022 TAC meeting schedule, it's yet to be determined. And once we identify those dates, we will publish them in our website and through an email blast for current membership to have knowledge of those future dates. And that concludes this agenda presentation.
Thank you, Lenny. Clerk, do we have any public comment?
We have one. Abel Seifu, please unmute yourself now.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, first of all, I would like to thank you again for giving me a chance. And this airport flat fare issue is a very important topic that this group have to discuss and come up with a solution. Here is what's going on right now. As you know, the airport permit is open for all. And most of the fares that we pick up from this airport is within 5 miles radius of this airport. So you have to expect the drivers wait an hour or 2 hours at the holding lot, come to the terminals, and they'll pick up someone at least within, as I said, within 5 miles radius. And they ended up collecting, I would say, maybe $12 to $15. Then they will collect that money and they go back to the holding lot. And from most drivers, including myself, what I experienced it is, well, we are not happy with the amount of money we're making, considering the gas, the insurance money going up, our expense, like the rent and everything. So it's my hope that this group will really discuss this issue, like considering the customer's experience that they're going to face for this kind of drivers, like including myself, which is going to a short distance from this airport and collecting not that much money. So another thing also I'd like to point out is Uber and Lyft, they have this kind of system. It's called anything within 10 miles radius from this airport, they charge $20 to the customers. So they had in the past a lot of drivers waiting just like the same, like an hour or 2 hours, picking up someone going to, let's say, Sheraton Marina, and the driver will get $3 out of that. So there is a lot of dissatisfaction for the customers. So they came up with this solution, which is just giving a flat rate within 10 miles radius. And another thing also we have to point out is most other cities like LA, Vegas, San Francisco already adapted the system. So it's my hope that San Diego MTS will consider this issue again and talk about it and come up with something significant. So it's my hope that this group, again, will discuss this issue because most drivers are suffering right now. As I told you, there is a longer wait time, and our fare is within, I always say 75% of our fare is within
30 seconds left.
What was that, ma'am?
30 seconds left.
Okay, so it's my hope that this group will discuss and come up with a solution. Thank you.
Chair, we have additional requests in the queue.
Okay.
Agnes.
Feel free to call on them, clerk.
Thank you. Agnes Agua, please unmute yourself now.
Well, I thank you all for this opportunity given to us to partake in this meeting. Now, about this item that was just mentioned, at the San Diego airport, there have been so many ways people are beginning to use to reject fares. And this will be one thing that will help to reduce it. If we have the flat rate, whether it's Harbor Island, Point Loma, or downtown, That will help to reduce this fare refusal. Secondly, this is a method that, just as the other speaker said, this is a method that has been in place in places like Seattle, Washington. It has been there for so many years. So I don't know why the airport here, San Diego Airport, they just find it difficult. Maybe they're waiting to hear from you guys before they will know what to do about it. And you guys should put the rate of inflation. You can measure inflation. There's inflation everywhere. And this rate of inflation of 3 to 5%, you guys should put that into consideration as well. That we, the drivers, we are suffering from all this when nothing is done to help us out in this situation. So please, you guys should consider some of these things and help us out, because this is a plan that will be in place within the airports around, people like LA and Seattle, Washington, even Minnesota, so Las Vegas. So please, we're counting on you guys to do the needful and help us out. Thank you.
Check out D. Please unmute yourself now.
Yeah, good afternoon. I said good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is William Alazi. I'm a taxi driver. Actually, I've been trying to address this issue of flat rate from the airports. I haven't been at the airport for quite some time. You notice, the MTS itself complained about the fact that some of the costs, even the airports, the CRS, they complain that drivers refuse fare. Well, we are we're a little bit better off by this period, stretching from October to December, because of the COVID situation and things reopening just as it is now. A lot of activities are still going on, but if it weren't for this particular situation, you know that is the dry time for us. And that would have been that the customers, the driver sitting at the airport for almost 2 hours, 3 hours before he get a fare. And sometimes, depending on how you play your countenance, if you're good to the customer, pretend as if nothing is happening, definitely you go to Point Loma or you go to Sheraton, they give you $20 and walk away. But if you express to yourself that frustration that I've sat down here 2 hours, 3 hours, and this is just what I'm getting, then some of the customers will feel bad about it and they still snap you with $15. I've had the privilege of being called a dupe by a customer because I added the airport trip fee when he's seen $7. When I got to Sheraton, I added the airport trip fee of $3.97. He said, "You're a thief, you're an armed robber. He's gonna call the police." I was offended about it, but that is what it is. So, but if we look at this issue, I've had a customer who came all the way from France. He was surprised when I told him from the airport to Sheraton. He said, "But you guys don't have flat rate." That's where she came from, that they have a flat rate, at least within 3 miles radius of the airport. So if other places are doing it, and San Diego being a city within the same limit or zone with all these cities, within the same level with all these cities, it's a tourist destination. Besides being a tourist destination, it's been a city that is on with a lot of activities. So if the previous period COVID situation, we didn't get any incentive. The hoteliers get incentive, the hospitality industries, every other places get incentive, but it's ours. We didn't get anything. So those are the things we need to look into. The federal minimum wage and the state minimum wage is way up now. Our meter, when was it last adjusted? Our meter was last adjusted 2006 or 2008. So the cost of gas, the inflation rate, and all these things need to be accounted for. We need to survive. I will appreciate it if you guys take this issue. The gentleman mentioned that you have to do the feasibility studies and stuff like that. You could do it, and I believe we'll come up smiling at the end of that. Thank you for your time.
That concludes public comment, Chair.
Thank you, Clerk. Thank you to members of the public for weighing in. We will now go to committee member questions and comments. As a reminder, this is an information item. No motion needed. Peter, I believe you are first on the list.
Yes, I just wanted to say that I wanted to say thank Lenny for being involved in the insurance issue during his time. You know, we've historically MTS has sort of been sometimes it's been sort of, well, that's not our issue, that's your issue. But I think those of us in the industry have been trying hard to create more competition in the insurance market so we could help bring the rates down. And I think Lenny's really extended himself to be part of that process and help and inform us. So I just wanted to, he's gone beyond what previous managers have, I think, in trying to help the industry address the unreasonable insurance rates. So I just wanted to go on record with that and thank the staff for its support.
Thank you for your kind words, Peter.
Thank you, Peter. We will now go to Tony.
Thank you, Chair. I second that opinion, Peter. I think Lenny's gone above and beyond, and he's demonstrated that he's trying to help the industry. It's a mutual benefit, goes both ways, but he has gone beyond, and I appreciate everything that he's done, and he's tried to get people also to get engaged, more engaged with the process. So again, thank you to the staff and Lenny. And one thing we should be careful with this proposal, because we're going to develop a two-tier customer service. Customer base of consumers, those that take cabs at the airport and those that take cabs in the city. And essentially we're saying we're going to take more money from you because you're going to be coming out of the airport because we spend more time there. And drivers in the city spend, if not more time, the same time in the city. And they also, their fares tend to average about the same length, their distance. And we have never been able to figure out how do we enforce the geography perimeters of a flat rate system? Who is going to enforce that? Because in some cities where they have it, there's a method of charging where the consumer knows who's being charged by a kiosk system or some type of system that charges the consumer that he knows is being charged the correct amount. If we're going to leave it up to the drivers to enforce geography, I mean, it goes both ways. There are some drivers that will adhere to the system and other drivers that will have challenges with the system. I mean, it's not an easy solution. That's why not all airports are engaged with a flat tier system. So it's something to think about, think about our consumers, taxi cabs, that, they pay a certain amount, the posted rates are fair. I think we should consider them facts because they will minimize the amount of trips. That is a fact that when things go well, people find another way to take another form of transportation service. I'm just throwing that out there. So thank you for the time.
Thank you, Tony. We will now go to Akbar.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Along with Peter and Tony, I also want to thank Lenny for everything that he's doing. He's been extremely helpful, and particularly on staying on top of the changes that the other regulators throughout the country is making. As an example, this registration, personal registrations, this could essentially help the insurance underwriters to potentially recategorize taxi cabs in a different category and perhaps bring down the premiums a little bit. So thank you very much, Lenny, for doing that as well. And furthermore, as far as this flat rates at the airport, I couldn't agree more with Tony. We have to be careful as to how we want to establish this. Some of the airports throughout the country that have had flat rates, that was not necessarily because they wanted to charge a higher rate. I'll give an example of Las Vegas. Las Vegas had the biggest overcharging of clients from the airport to the strip area. They would take the longer route, and if those of us that have been in the industry for a long time, we recall that on a regular basis, almost on weekly basis, there was an article about Las Vegas taxi drivers long hauling from the airport to the strip. That's why they came up with this flat rate to the different parts of the strip. I was just there about 3 weeks ago for a convention, and how they have established that flat rate is they've basically taken the meter rate and calculated it as a flat rate to that particular point, not necessarily upcharging to charge the clients more. As Tony said, if we're charging a different rate for outbound trips from the airport and a different rate inbound to the airport, that would significantly increase the confusion for the end user, people that are sitting in the back seat. Again, thank you for allowing me to make these comments, and that's all I have to say.
Thank you. We'll now go to David.
The only thing I can think of to maybe not solve this problem, but make a temporary repair of it for the upcharging of the meter and so on and so forth for the flat rates. In the interim, we should charge $1 extra. Everybody's complaining about the gas prices, which I was told it was not a big deal, but it is apparently, because I'm hearing drivers complaining about the gas prices. Well, then we should institute, like we did back in 09 or 08, I think it was. We added $1 surcharge to the meter for gasoline expenses instead of raising the meter or raising to a flat rate system. That would constitute at least some cost recovery for the driver as well as the owner in the repair cost, as well as revenue for gasoline and oil and all that expenses.
Thank you. We will now go to Mark.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate that. I just wanted to clarify a couple of items. The airport authority does not have any authority to set taxi rate or fares in the county of San Diego. That purview is directly and only with MTS, not with the airport. The airport can charge a trip fee for access to the airport, and that's currently the only fee that we charge other than administrative fee for an application. The airport does accommodate the negotiated rate that MTS worked out about 1.5 years ago, and we accommodated that so that a taxi can agree with a negotiated rate with his customer as long as it's less than or equal to the meter rate and the driver runs the meter throughout the trip. So that's perfectly fine. We do enforce fare refusals in our taxi line for efficiency reasons on airport. But if MTS under its authority works with the industry to come up with negotiated rates or flat rates in the county of San Diego, the airport authority stands ready to accommodate those rates on airport. So we're willing to work with the mode and with MTS going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Mark. Seeing no other committee member questions or comments. Tony, did you have?
Alfred.
Oh, Alfred. Okay. Alfred, go ahead.
Yeah, this flat rate is going to be a problematic in San Diego. Different state is different. Vegas or other places. San Diego taxi, we have a different meter in the taxi cab. It's not the same. You cannot have a flat rate on your meter because people don't have that option to do that. So that would be a very problematic, only if MTS find other option to do that, because the flat rate will not be fixable in San Diego because people don't have a meter. No, not a meter. The option to put the amount in there, unless they change the meter. By changing all the meter, that would be a very big problem because having $25 or any amount, it would be there permanent unless they change it again. So if MTS make a study about that, but I don't think that will work in San Diego flat rate. We can't. If city or MTS want to have the owner give them some incentive money or airport give them some money, but flat rate would be a problem because it would make the customer want to use Uber instead of using the taxi if the rate is more than what is on the meter. So I think flat rate would be a problematic. Thank you.
Thank you, Alfred. Seeing Tony, did you have Margot? Okay. Go ahead, Margot.
Thank you. I have a couple of points. First of all, again, Lenny and the staff, we've done a great job and my on the road. And thank you very much. Since last March or last year, officially we've been down. It was really January, and it's been a very tough 2 years here. Secondly, our chair of our committee is going on to a new job at the city council. We want to thank him for his service. He's done a phenomenal job. And we also have to note that we're going to need a new chair for the committee unless he volunteers to stay on. Now, the airport flat rate. I'm hearing all the stuff. I've got 2 drivers in back of me. We're all senior drivers. I am the senior driver. I opened up Terminal 2 the first day it opened this semester. I hear what's going on and we're sitting 2 hours for $5. And obviously we need to rebuild the industry. We don't have enough cabs everywhere. We don't have enough drivers. And we're driving from North County down to the border for fares and spending a ton of high fares. You know, flat rates needs to be updated. We're charging more than the incorrect. We've been doing medical vouchers. We actually have a little less than a meter, and it makes it fair. And then that way you can pay the way you want, and that makes it fun. But the other problem is the actual charge. What's happening?
What's your name?
Yeah. What's happening is drivers.
Where are you going now? Where are you going to go? Alcohol and what?
Excuse me. What's happening is if the driver gives a flat rate of so-and-so, then Uber gets a little less, they get the fare. This has been going on and on, but I'm also hearing charges of $50 to go for a $5 trip. And that happened just a few days ago, and it was not from a taxi. So we need to have further discussion on this and straighten it out. Now, one more comment on the airport. The Harbor Police actually monitor the airport. And I come from an era where I was circling 5 hours a day and to avoid getting tickets because we had too many cabs on the line. And the harbor cops wrote thousands of tickets against the cabs. We need to identify that they really are a police unit. And if there's an issue, as happened with David, that we get it resolved so it doesn't happen again. And the last one was David was called from the city to go get a fare with a handicap at the airport and was risking a ticket. And this needs to be discussed also. We cannot have people sitting in wheelchairs for 2 hours waiting to get a taxi to get them home. I thank you very much. Happy holidays to all concerned. And
Thank you, Margot. We will now move to item number 8, quick time check. It's 11:51. So this is an information item only. Lenny, if you'd like to go ahead and begin the presentation.
Thank you, Chair. Topics for the next TAC meeting. Some to be determined, but it will take place most likely in the month of February. We will present the 2022 taxi cab maximum rates of fare. Those rates of fares are based on the consumer price index, and that should address all inflation concerns, gas, maintenance, everything that goes. We'll take that into account into those new calculations. We'll also present an update to the committee on the future election process. We will present the quarterly report and operational updates, advertisement options at the airport, and an update on city outreach pertaining to the passage of AB 302 that would allow MTS to contract with all the cities within the county for hire vehicle regulations. And those are the proposed topics for the next meeting.
Thank you, Lenny. So we will now take we'll take public comment on this item. Clerk, do we have any public comment?
We do not.
Thank you. All right, so then we will go to committee members and see if there are any committee members who would like to speak to this.
Yes, Margot again. There's one other issue. Once in a while, when they're short of cabs, they've been calling in other taxi cabs, and this has been a problem. There's a whole bunch of discussions that we want to bring up. I agree with the agenda. I think that Lenny's done a good job in this. And again, happy holidays to all. Congratulations on our chair going on to his new job. From this group, Ben Wessel was the second president of the council, and Scott Pete, our congressman, was the first president. So you're coming up into a very elite scenario there, and good luck with it. It's going to be a rough year because we understand with COVID what's going on. And again, happy holidays to everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Margot. I appreciate that. Do we have any additional committee member comments for this item? Okay. Well, I appreciate you laying this out for us, Lenny. Hopefully this helps provide a little more insight for folks. And I just wanted to quickly say that beyond the top topics outlined by Lenny for the next meeting, we are very interested in hearing the goals that you all have for 2022, what we as a committee want to accomplish next year, and hearing that vision will help me and my team and the MTS staff start planning, researching, and facilitating how we can actually work toward those goals. So I encourage all members of the committee to reach out to Lenny and or my team to help inform us for how we make 2022 as productive as possible. With that, we will now move to item 9, which is committee member communications. And this is just as a reminder, opportunity to provide brief comment on any taxi cab related items not included on the agenda.
This is for the coming year, Mr. Chair?
Sure. This could be the coming year. This could be any other taxi cab related items that are not on the agenda. Technically, the last item was for the coming year as well, but we can hear what you have to say now. I will, in the sake of transparency, I do need to hop off at noon, so just wanted to make sure that the rest of the committee knew that.
Reach out to Lenny and give him some information for the coming year on items.
Alfred, did you have your hand up, sir?
Oh, yes. So, about rate issue would be, as suggestion would be after the February meeting 2022, right? To find out if they're going to make some. It suggests that maximum rate, minimum rate be postponed on the discussion of after the meeting on the February, correct?
Alfred, the CPI is published by the Department of Labor at the last week of January. As soon as the last figures of the yearly calculations from the CPI come out, we will calculate the new maximum rate of fare and communicate it through an email blast to all permit holders. That way they can choose to adopt it and calibrate their meter at that time. And we will publish it again in the February meeting. But to answer your question, the new maximum rate of fare will be published before the TAC meeting via email.
Would that be on the meter? Because you have if you have into the meter, there's some people in the city, and they will also have a benefit of minimum rate. So how would that work? Because right now the meter are all different. There's some people don't have an option to put minimum on their meter. So how come that work? Because every taxi are different. How would that work?
Every permit holder has the option to adopt the maximum rate of fare or calibrate their meter as low as they want to. The only thing that we will be enforcing is that the maximum rate of fare is the one that's in the meter and no more than that. But if permit holders wish to charge less, it is up to them. The experience, as you know, is that every one is in consensus in terms of maintaining a similar fare in the meter, but they will certainly have an option to adopt the new maximum fare once it becomes available at the latter part of January.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Alfred. And thank you, Lenny, for answering that question. As we wrap up here, I just want to say thank you to all the members of the committee for your participation, your thoughtfulness, the questions that you asked, the ideas that you put forward. I think there's multiple items in today's meeting that speak to the importance of having folks who are directly impacted by the decisions made at MTS involved in the conversation. And as I understand it, that's exactly what this committee is supposed to do. Having the voices of practitioners, is super important. There's just some little, but there's small but very important details that you really can only know if you're on the ground. So thank you all for your engagement here. I also want to make sure that I say a huge thank you to Samantha and Lenny, who do so much behind the scenes to make this committee work. We've given them a lot of work to try to make sure this committee is as effective as possible. And Samantha and Lenny have definitely risen to the occasion throughout the year. So thank you. And then finally, Julio Garcia from the District 9 team provides a lot of support to me and speaks quite a bit with Lenny and Samantha. And I wanted to make sure that he gets his recognition as well. But with that, we will come to a close. I'll say thank you again. Happy holidays to everyone. And I cannot wait to get to work in 2022. Thank you, everyone.